Hi, my name is Richard Lawton, and I am an elementary music teacher and Orff Schulwerk teacher educator based in Los Angeles, California. I'd like to begin by thanking OMEA for inviting me to participate in the 2024 State Music Conference, and also to thank Parapole for sponsoring me and providing me with these really wonderful instruments here. My topic today is to talk about ukulele and how it fits into my Orff Schulwerk practice. I first began to use ukuleles, I think 15 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, the first ever activity was to add them to fifth grade culmination with the kids singing and playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And subsequently, I taught for many years ukulele as a separate unit, but in recent times, I've started to incorporate the ukulele into other sort of Orff Schulwerk activities, which includes meaningful music-making opportunities for children, as well as instructional tools. What I find is that the ukuleles are very accessible to kids. They provide a flavor which doesn't exist in the instrumentarium as it's conventionally constructed. And as I say, they're very good at making certain kind of elemental music points. But like all of these instruments, they have their own unique characteristics, which are really wonderful and can add a lot to your classroom. Speaking of tools from my classroom, one tool that I really like to use are these one-by-one cardboard boxes, which are super light and easy to carry around and pretend there's all kinds of interesting things in. I often will put a piece of copy paper on one side with a ta, and then a TT on the other side here, and then on the third side that's a blank or rest. And so one of the activities I like to do with first and second grade is to actually set these out on chairs and let the kids change the pattern while we are actually clapping along. Let me demonstrate how that works. So let me go ahead and set up our boxes down below here. And what I'm going to do is clap the pattern, and you'll watch as I come to the end of the pattern, the boxes will change, and it's time to go back to the beginning and repeat. So let's try that. Here we go. Anyway, I think you get the idea. So my kids have already learned this and the symbols and the associations, so that when it comes time to talking about strumming the ukulele, they're all set to go with this idea of what I do is I try to make this connection between strumming down, and I'm very insistent, I think you should be too, about strumming in a common way, so the attack, if you're playing with lots of ukuleles, is the same. So I recommend that they use the back of the first fingernail or second fingernail and go lightly so it doesn't wind up hurting. And let me just check. Okay, good. So we'll do the same thing now. I'm going to go ahead and strum a bit, and I want you to pay particular attention to the fact that when it's a TT, I'm going to go down, up. All right, and for the up, I'll use the sort of the tip of my fingernail like this. So let's try a few of these. You get the idea. Now, one of the things that you notice right away, or that I noticed right away, is that unlike this sort of theoretical TTs being, the 2/8 notes being equal, when you strum up and down, it actually doesn't. They're not equal. The upbeat, the upstroke, has a slightly softer, feeling to it. And this is where this feeling of shuffling comes from. The shuffling is something that is not possible except with a high level of skill on the barred instruments. But lots of music that we play, particularly folk music, shuffles. So it's a great way to kind of introduce this idea of shuffling. And that's what we're going to do on the piece I'm going to play for you right now, which is One Love by Bob Marley. Before we go any further, let me just mention that I like to do the song in G, so it sets up for the recorders. So let's go ahead and talk about a G chord. I'm actually going to put my second finger in the second box of the first string, reach across with my third finger, in third box, second string, first finger, in the second box of the third string. And that's a D, by the way, if your kids are guitar players, or you are. So let's make that G. I'm going to strum it down. Sounds like that is your G chord. The other two chords that we will be playing for this piece are C, which is third finger in the third box of the first string, C. And then a D chord. And I like to make the D chord for this particular song, but just in general, I find my kids find it easier to play barring across the second box and putting your pinky in the fifth box. That's a D chord. Okay, so going back for a second to the graphic notation we were talking about earlier, one of the things I really like about using it to illustrate strumming patterns for my ukulele students is that it gets them to think about how to play on the different beats in very precise ways. And this becomes super important when you're talking about more challenging music like reggae, for example, that often does not have anything on the downbeat. That's the whole feel of reggae. So sometimes what I'll do is, after they've figured out a bunch of different configurations and learned to play them, I'll put this pattern up. And I'll say, who can play this? And let's all play it right now in G and see if it doesn't have a reggae feeling for you. And you just feel free to strum along with me on G. Here we go. Okay. So it has a natural swing to it, which is something that's very, very challenging, I find, to duplicate on the barred instruments. In fact, I used to try to do that, but now that I have these in my instrumentarium, I let the ukuleles carry the weight of adding a sense of swing, a sense of slightly syncopated feeling, and I let the barred instruments just do their thing. Let me sing through. My voice is a little shot, but hey, what can you do? It's wintertime. I'm going to sing through a verse of this, and please feel free to sing. I'm going to put the score up for you there, and please feel free to sing along. Here we go. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. Let's get together and feel all right. All right. So sometimes that's as far as we go. We sing One Love, we talk about reggae, maybe we'll even do it as a performance piece. But what's nice, as I said before, because you now have this kind of earthy, swingy quality, we can use the other elements of the Orff Instrumentarium in combination with the ukulele to get a really nice overall effect that swings and yet allows each of these different instruments to do what they do best. So. this little arrangement illustrates that the ukulele is a good fit for the Orff Instrumentarium, at least as far as timbre is concerned. In fact, there are some guitar pieces in the volumes. I'm talking about the Music for Children volumes. That's the basic repertoire of Orff Schulwerk. And particularly, I think of Street Song or Gassenhauer, which in the notes of, I think in volume 3, they say was a lute piece at one time. So the instrumentarium can handle it, but it's also worth noting that the ukuleles can do many of the things that barred instruments can do. Let me give you some examples. They can play percussively. They can play improvisation, obviously. As you will see, we can develop ostinati very easily with them. And you can also play drones and bordoons. But the ukulele can also do things that barred instruments can't do. And this is very useful in the classroom. For example, you can play and move. You can sing and play. You can play expressively. And you can play multiple pitches, in other words, chords, harmony, easily. In fact, that's what these instruments are designed to do. Two other things that are worth mentioning, which is that ukuleles are much less expensive than barred instruments. So if you're on a budget or you only have a handful of instruments and you're looking to expand, considering adding ukuleles is something that's much more manageable for those of us who have limited means. And the other thing I really like about it is that, like the recorders, the students tend to be looking at you while they're playing. When they play the barred instruments, they tend to be looking at the instrument. In the Schulwerk, we typically begin the conversation about pitch with so and me, and then add la and add do and add re to complete the pentatonic. The idea being that we're going to start with the simplest melodic idea, the most elemental idea, and then scaffold outward from that. And we do this on the barred instruments, but of course, it works equally well on the ukulele, which also is something that plays very comfortably in the key of C. Now, at the same time, actually even earlier in the instructional sequence for most of us, Orff teachers tend to teach rhythm by connecting it to language. And that could be the vocabulary that the kids are learning in their language arts class. And we create these rhythm building bricks, which we can actually construct sentences or phrases of words, which then also become phrases, rhythmic phrases as well. And then you can add pitch to that. So where this goes is that gradually you're adding all of these layers of abstract ideas, but in this very carefully escalating way. So the kids are challenged, but not so challenged that they get bugged out by it. Let me use an example something that I think works actually in some ways better on ukulele than on the barred instruments, which is a piece called The Baker that appears on page 19 in page 19 of volume number 1 of Music for Children. Actually, for this one, I think I'll go to I like the entire Enya line of ukuleles, but I really like these plastic ones. I've had this one for a while. It's my go-to uk. So anyway, the pitches that we'll be using are so and mi, okay, which are G, okay, G and E. So that's open 4-string, open 2-string. We'll also be using do, low do, okay, which is the 3-string, and then we'll use the do 2 or the high do, which is actually should be familiar from the C chord before, 3rd box, 1st string. Okay. So anyway, I'll put the score up here, and I'm going to play through the Baker, and then let's talk about it. The baker is baking sweet biscuits so small, his oven can hold 700 in all. Buy some for tea, buy some for tea, the biggest for me. So I like the baker as a way of illustrating triple meter. But the other thing that's true, this is really great about, you know, the ukulele, um, is that we can match the pitches, the individual pitches that they're playing. This is in the student's vocal range, so they can actually play it. You can play it, you can sing it, and when you play it, they have to sing. So there's all kinds of ways to use this just to work on vocal pedagogy, just as a teaching tool. And then as long as they're in tune, the instruments work just as effectively for them to match pitch as well. Okay. So now let's talk about constructing something using this idea about the rhythm building bricks. So typically where I go with this is that I'll say to the kids, okay, so we talk about biscuits and tea and the whole culture of drinking tea and eating cookies in England and so on. And I will ask them, something that's of great interest to them, how to make cookies. What are some ingredients for making cookies? And we come up with a list. So let's do that right now. Now, as you can see, there's some of the ingredients that come up with great frequency. And, you know, kids being kids, you sometimes get humorous ingredients, especially if you do this activity around Halloween. There you go. So the next step is to organize these ingredients according to their rhythmic qualities. In other words, what's the exact rhythm of the language? And because we're talking about triple meter, our rhythm building bricks will be, you know, the main ones who I usually start with are ta, rest, rest, ta, ta, rest, and ta, ta, ta. And ask the question, which of these ingredients has what feeling? We're also going to be talking about how certain words, you know, it's not just a matter of fitting the number of syllables with the number of beats. That's easy, the counting. It's the feel. So something like vanilla extract might be spread over 3 boxes like this in order to make sure that the accented beats, the nil of vanilla, and the extract part of extract line up with the downbeats in the bricks. Anyway, let's construct an 8-brick composition / biscuit recipe. And to be completely accurate, what I'm really looking for here is 2 lines of four bricks each. I often will use an AA, BA elemental form when I'm asking the kids to compose, just because it has a real finished feeling about it that they like, particularly at this early stage where we haven't really talked about cadence yet. So it gives it a sense of completeness. And it's a less melodic material that they have to worry about. So I'm going to go ahead and put that recipe up there in a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to improvise the rhythm. Actually move over so you can see it. There you go. See it pop right up there. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the recipe, just picking individual open strings. And what you'll hear is this sort of improvisatory idea that's in the C pentatonic that's actually very complementary to the baker. So let's try that. I think I'm my last A wrong there, but that's all right. Because, as I say, right now we're in this exploratory, improvisatory phase of the process. The next step, if we decided to take it that far, would be to have the kids actually write down their music to make a record of what they're trying to do for the reason that composition was invented in the first place, which is to keep track of our really cool musical ideas. Where this goes next is that you could then take the baker, which is the main part that actually has this vocal component, so on, and you could play that as let's say the A section of a rondo, where the B section would be B, C, D, E, and so on, would be each group's composition and /recipe. They can even sing it, you know, they can actually or speak the words. So there's all kinds of application, but what happens, which is really, really great, and this is not an ukulele thing, this is an Orff Schulwerk thing. The kids get so excited about playing playing their own original ideas, their own compositions. It gave them ideas, it triggered something, it sort of set off that light bulb. And that's, of course, what we're looking to do. Now, the one thing that I will say, going back to the ukuleles, where triple meter is so great, is this idea of rolling. This is much easier to manage than trying to play something similar on the barred instruments. So, again, I'm not opposed to developing good alternating hand technique and all the rest of it, but this just feels right. And again, as I said, and we'll talk about rolling a bit later in this video, but this rolling finger technique, this 3-finger roll, has application guitar, banjo, you name it, just about any stringed instrument. As I said earlier, in the Schulwerk, when we refer to the volumes, we're talking about the 5-volume set, Music for Children, the yellow books, which anyone who's taken Orff levels training in the summer knows all about. They are the repository of the bulk of the sort of Orff Schulwerk repertoire. And book number 1 is devoted entirely to C pentatonic. And so what that means is it's loaded with material which is easily adaptable for this instrument, which also, as we've said, plays very nicely in C. So one thing that I highly recommend is just opening up volume 1 and getting out your ukulele and just picking out some of the melodies and seeing what pops for you. There's some great little canons and things like that. Some of the more sophisticated pieces, though, are actually, to my mind, as beautiful, if not more so, played on the ukulele. One in particular that I really love is Tranquillo 20, which is, I think, on page 106 of volume 1. And the melody will be very familiar to a lot of you if you've taken Orff Level 1, because it's something that is frequently taught at the end of the second week, because it calls for 3-mallet technique, but we're not going to do anything that complicated right now. Anyway, here's the melody played on the ukulele. It goes like this. So anyway, as I said, it's beautiful played on the barred instruments, it's beautiful sung, played on the recorders, but I love it on this instrument because you notice I was using little expressive techniques. Kids can do this too. I'm sliding, I'm pulling off, I'm hammering on. All of these things add this degree of realism to it. It's making it feel earthier somehow. At least my kids are excited about that, because those little ways of expressing themselves are something that's very, very, very important, particularly, as I say, in today's general music classroom. So I'm not going to show you the melody. The score is in the book if you want to look it up. But what I will show you is an adaptation of the other musical idea. This is the thing that is typically played on 3 mallets. I'm going to go ahead and put this up, this ostinato, which is essentially nothing more than a shuffle from a C major to an A minor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the macro beats. And this is the way I usually teach it to my kids too. So this is all on 4th string. And now let's add that little anacrusis before each of the macro beats. And now now if you're feeling like, you're ready for it, or the kids are ready for it, you can try that, basically playing the, as indicated. Again, this isn't exactly what appears in the book, which is why I can show it to you. But it's very, very similar. It's a very similar type effect. So let's go ahead and put that together. And let me play that for you right now. Okay, so also, by the way, so a number of different ways to do this. Sometimes I just play that part because it's hard and the kids kind of, play the melody or improvise over the top of it. Sometimes I have them just strum on C and A minor, two of the easiest chords to play. The C we saw before, the A minor. Just to look closely, as I'm actually going to put my second finger in the second box of the fourth string. So just shuffling back and forth between those two sounds like this. Excellent. Where I'm going with this is that another huge part of Orff Schulwerk teaching, which we don't typically associate with ukulele, is improvisation. But there's really no reason why we can't. Because just like looking at the barred instruments and people say, take off your B's and your F's, your best friends forever, your burgers, fries, whatever. We can talk about configuration with regard to what some people call the fretboard roadmap. Let me put that up for you here. As you can see, all of those boxes indicate where those pitches are. And you can make a great improvisation out of just a few pitches, especially if you're using some of those, a little vibrato or something, some of that technique. And so one of the things you can do is you can keep playing that, what's essentially just this sort of relative minor shift in the accompaniment, this little ostinato, and have the kids just improvise over the top of that. And you can do that for an extended period. You can play the melody, not play the melody. What I'm getting at here is this is a big part. This idea of just letting them go, letting them to explore, is something that we like to do in the Schulwerk. We like to do it to accompany movement and so on. But what's nice about this is that you can do this on the barred instruments, but you can't walk around with them. With the ukuleles, you can actually walk around the room and do it. This was also something that came up during the pandemic when I couldn't see the kids at all. And we're looking to create those kinds of, also looking to lower anxiety for all of us, by the way. Looking for these kind of calming musical experiences that also kind of give them ideas. So what I'd like to share with you right now is a video that we came up with during the pandemic, which is based on this piece, Tranquilo. And I'm going to put up that fretboard roadmap again during the video. But what I'd like you to do is just follow the directions and kind of let yourself go. Just get out your ukulele, you make sure you're in tune, and then just explore, just kind of be in this sort of musical moment. Okay? So here comes that video, and we'll talk on the other side. Thanks. So after spending some time with pentatonic material, the sequence in the Schulwerk calls for moving on to gradually more sophisticated, adding individual pitches, working your way up towards diatonic modes. And in particular, Aeolian, Dorian, and Phrygian, of course Ionian as well, are what appear in the volumes. I'm going to move away from the volumes and do a folk tune, which is a Scarborough Fair, which is a Dorian folk tune, at least as it was conceived of by Simon and Garfunkel. I like to illustrate how nice the modes can be on ukulele, but also, again, ways to blend this instrument with its kind of rustic, swingy, quality, sort of guitar-like quality, with the barred instruments and the things that they can do. So, as I mentioned, Scarborough Fair is a Dorian tune. It's a pretty accessible song to sing and play on recorder in D, which is also the most accessible Dorian, Dorian and D, basically D to D2. Many folk tunes I find work well with chordophone accompaniment because it's just the feel this instrument has. It's very folky quality. So the primary harmonic idea here is a shift from D minor, and I'm actually using a slightly easier D minor chord, which is to just do, instead of doing this, which I think is more typically done, I'm actually going to put my first finger in the second box of the first box, first finger, first box, second string, second box, third string, third finger. Has a kind of suspended quality. And then, of course, the other chord will be C major. Okay. Now, before we go any further than that, let's go back to this idea of, and I don't know if I mentioned specifically, but when I'm teaching these individual strings to kids, I will often identify them by number. So if I want them to pick a pattern for me, I might say 3, 2, 1. And then I might add 4, 2, 1. So maybe my pattern, my ostinato, if you will, be 3, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, like this. And once again, that 3-finger roll is something that is very, very, I think it developed actually as banjo technique, but it applies to just about any stringed instrument. And it's also a different way to think about how to play, accompaniment, because instead of developing a specific melodic line, what I'm going to do is put the chord positions in here on D minor using that same picking pattern, and I'm just going to change this back and forth, keep this thing going here. And what I'm going to do is get this really lovely shifting from this sort of suspended D minor sound to a C. And it goes like this. Now, when you do that with your kids, even after they've done the 3, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, which they can all handle, and you start putting that chord stuff, you want to see their eyes light up because it has this really great, it's this great, wonderful Dorian feeling. In effect, what we have here is a moving drone, which is something that is talked about in more advanced music for children repertoire. But what you also have, just as a practical thing, is this really nice Dorian flavored framework that you can improvise against. So let's do that. We have this part here. This will be the main idea here. And let's add some unpitched percussion. I don't think we've done that yet. Let's see. All right, my little cajon box here. All right, and why make it complicated? Let's try something simple, again, using that language connection. How about Scarborough Fair? Let's try that. right, you get the idea. So whatever you have handy there at home, why don't you grab, recorder will work, barred instruments will work, ukulele will work, finger cymbals will work, whatever you have handy, grab it right now and let's do that same thing. Let's take this idea that we have with the tranquillo and let's create this sort of exploratory piece of durian, just kind of wonderfulness. And let's jam along for as long as you want. And then we'll talk about it afterwards. So you may have noticed that we actually haven't gotten to the song Scarborough Fair yet. Uh, that's the problem with taking an exploratory approach to the Schulwerk sometimes, is that you get lost in the weeds and you don't actually get around to doing what you set out to do. Unless what you set out to do is just to give the kids opportunities to make music in authentic ways. And to do it in a participatory way, which means being part of a group exercise, and that the point is about being together. That's not to say that you can't incorporate these extended improvisational, exploratory mood pieces into performance. I've done that. Typically what you'll do is you can kind of put it at the beginning. So you get this going here, you know, with your advanced pickers. And you have some kids moving and some kids playing the recorder and improvising. And then in the middle section, you get around to singing Scarborough Fair. And then maybe you exit the same way. You kind of go out with that same arpeggiated ostinato. A little tag on the end. And there you have it. Lovely. And like I say, for younger kids, you know, definitely you want to keep that, the framework for improvisation tight. You want to keep those windows of opportunity short, not just to limit what they can do, but also to keep them safe in terms of their self-expression. Self-expression can be scary. But as they develop a comfort level, what you also want to do is just kind of open the door to kind of being in the moment and letting that extend itself, you know, for as long as it feels right to do it. And particularly in the classroom, this is something that we do a lot. And I think I said before, it's a great way to incorporate movement as well, which of course is another important way that kids internalize music. Now, it's not to say that not all of these things can be done with the Orff Instrumentarium as it exists, but you know, when it comes to accessibility and portability, and really expressiveness, this instrument has, as I say, some unique qualities that those instruments can't match. So why not include this one as well? So that brings us back to where we started, which is this notion of playing cool 3 and 4 chord pop tunes on the ukulele, which is something that those of us who use ukuleles do at least some of the time in our elementary classrooms. But I do hope this video is also giving you some ideas about using the ukulele as an instructional tool in the Orff Schulwerk style to illustrate elemental music points and to put an instrument into the hands of kids that's accessible and easy to play and fun to play. And as it turns out, is a really nice complement for lots of these other instruments that many of us use in our classrooms all the time. So anyway, once again, I want to thank OMEA for inviting me to participate, and I want to thank Parapole for sponsoring me. There's a card at the end of this video with all of my contact information, and please, if you have any questions or any follow-up, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. So good luck with your school year and enjoy the rest of your conference, and happy 2024.